right, welcome to Time for Success, the podcast where we talk about what do you need to do in your business to have a freedom business. And what do I mean by that? A business that can scale and grow without you having to be there every day. So you can do more of the fun things in life, the bigger things in life in terms of like family, bigger causes, or maybe just working with your best clients. But we want to do everything we can to give you the information that you need to be able to get there. And this is Matt Barbey, your host of Time for Success. And I am a consultant. I'm a business coach. And I work with clients every day, helping them to take the steps they need to get to that state. And this week, we're digging into a really important topic around cybersecurity. It's so easy to fall into that trap and get complacent and become victims of cybersecurity, especially attacks like ransomware and things like that. So we're going to dig into, especially this week, phishing attacks. And so I've asked some guests from Keane Technologies out of St. Louis, Missouri, to talk with us about that, educate us a little bit on this, and really figure out what we can do to kind of protect ourselves. So I've got Jamie Mauck here with Debbie Burnham. Again, they're from Keane Technologies out of St. Louis, Missouri. And how are you both doing?
I'm doing good, Matt. Appreciate you having us on here today.
Good. Well, I appreciate you guys being on here with us today. And Keane Technologies is a managed services provider. Isn't that right, Jamie and Debbie?
That's right.
Right. Okay. And so managed services provider, what does a managed services provider do?
Well, it starts with we come in, we install an agent on each workstation and server, does desktop monitoring, antivirus monitoring, network monitoring, and really it's a proactive approach to computer issues and network issues within the company. We try to get ahead of the problem, and there's a lot of reporting. As soon as there's an alert, we can respond in a pretty timely fashion.
Okay, so it's basically about being proactive with your technology, being proactive with your computers, so that you don't have to worry about problems popping up, or somebody's going to get to them pretty fast, right?
Right.
Okay, great. And how does like security kind of fall into place with this? Like when we're talking about security and cybersecurity, like how does a managed services provider help out with that?
Yeah, so there's multiple layers, and with our managed services side, we come in with a contract, and with that, it has minimum standard requirements. So we go through your entire network, all your computers, and we make sure that they're at a certain level, so that whenever we have everything set up and ready to go, most of your problems, probably 90% of your problems, go away. And then after that, we can monitor and maintain. But with those minimum standards, we look at your firewalls, we look at all your networking equipment, we'll look at your antivirus, all your layered security stuff, spam filters, and we'll make sure that they're all to standard. And most of the time, that'll take care of a lot of the issues, just from changing that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you. So you help to maintain the systems. You help to make sure that they have at least a kind of a minimum level of security at the very least, and that's probably a big gap for a lot of business owners. My understanding is one of those areas that you particularly help out with is with helping to educate and even kind of provide kind of an assessment on the risks of phishing attacks within an organization, within a company. So what is a phishing attack?
Right. Well, so phishing attacks are pretty much bogus emails that come in, or they're targeted as, they're trying to get your user or your employee or even your CEOs to click on a link and either download malicious software or enter in your credentials so that they can compromise your system and get to your data.
Okay. All right. So it's basically a fake email that comes in and it looks legitimate. It looks like it's from another company or legitimate company, but it's really fake. And it's going to send you to a fake site that's going to try to get your important information, right?
Yeah. These guys that build these things, or gals, they tend to be really ingenuitive and make things really hard to tell the difference between a real email and a fake email.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty big deal because I know I've gotten those emails. Actually, I was talking with a friend of mine, and I was actually telling him I just happened to mention that I was going to have on my podcast, you guys, and we were going to be talking about phishing emails. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't even want to talk about that right now." Apparently, just the day before, he had just gotten a brand new credit card, brand new in the mail, right? And he had gotten some sort of email. I don't remember what it was from, but he wasn't really paying attention. I guess he was just kind of in a hurry, and he clicked it, and it kind of looked a little funky, but he just went ahead and put his information in there and updated his card, and he immediately realized right after he put everything in, he's like, "Oh no, I don't think that was real." And
Yeah, it happens all the time, and they're getting smarter about it too. I mean, they do research on your company, and they'll know the structure. They'll know who the CEO is. They'll know who your accounts payable people are, your HR people, and they'll
yeah,
target them.
yeah. So you guys help out with that. Now, I didn't really get into this yet, but can you tell the audience a little bit more about like what you guys do actually with Keane and with your clients?
Sure, I'm the IT director over at Keane Insurance, and Debbie's the sales manager. We really try to help businesses out, especially with the security side, but we want to make their lives easier, and we do that through technology. And it's nice for the managed services side. We can usually come in and do it a lot more cost effectively than say if you hire full-time staff,
Mhm.
or we can help supplement that full-time staff if you already have one. But we can do it more cost effectively because we take all of those tools and then we can spread them out through the cost throughout multiple companies, and it's just way more efficient that way.
Right. Way more efficient than trying to have your own IT team and trying to keep them educated. And I mean, man, I know a lot of people that I've talked with who have tried to maintain their own IT team. They're so bogged down in tickets and work, they don't ever get a chance to go out and learn and
Right.
it's in the seminars that they need to even keep up with issues like especially security issues. So that's a huge side of things. So Debbie, what got you into the technology industry, and what excites you about what you do and helping folks?
I like working for my company because I like the people I'm involved with, and it motivates me to want to help other people.
Yeah.
I also like that we are so cost effective, and we don't have a blanket cost for every customer. And then we
Hmm.
go in there and customize each of our clients' needs so that they're not paying for more than what they need to.
Right. So being able to manage that cash flow.
And do what we do. Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that last part? I think I spoke over you.
it's okay. I'm sorry. It motivates me to work for the people I do and do what we do to help people out.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. So in terms of the phishing attacks, um, how common are phishing attacks?
Well, they're very common. You know, it's hard to pay. Nobody agrees on the statistics of it, but it's like one every 8.3 seconds comes through, is kind of what, or at least the statistics that I have. And as far as businesses go, they're exceptionally dangerous, and nobody really thinks to train their users on what to and what not to do with an email. And
Hmm.
we like to come in with that kind of training and help them out.
Okay. So they come through fairly frequently. Um, what are the risks though associated with that? Yeah, I mean, maybe I put in my bank account information or something like that, but are there other bigger risks associated with it?
Yeah, I mean, just losing any kind of data, but the frequency of the phishing attacks come in really really quickly. But what you really have to worry about is the user level. So it's something like 40% or a little bit less than that, 38% of users actually click on those emails and will explore them. With
Mm,
our training, once after about 12 weeks with that, it drops in about half. And then with 6 months of the training, it's down to like 1%. I mean, it's ridiculous. Just a few things like showing the users what to look for and what not to look for can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're first working with a client, how do you help them to really assess the need for the phishing education, or I mean, to assess the need within their business? Like, what do you guys do?
Sure. Like right now, we're running a free phishing test, so
Oh,
we
okay.
can go in and just get a list of your users within your domain. We can even integrate it in with Active Directory if that's easier for you. And then we run that free phishing test, and within 24 hours, we'll have a report for you that kind of tells you which users are susceptible or your highest risk is what you're looking
Hmm.
for,
Yeah.
and then you can decide on what to do from there. You can really tell who needs the most training.
Okay. So there's actually a way to test it. So I guess with that, you guys send out a bunch of fake emails, right? Is
Right.
that what you're
Yeah.
doing?
Right. I'm
uh,
not going to tell you what those emails look like, but yeah, they're highly effective. I mean,
yeah.
it's stuff that people high click rate.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, I'm guessing they look a lot like just a regular phishing email, which looks a lot like a regular email from somebody's account. Like I know PayPal is one that a lot of companies are at risk for getting, or I mean, I've seen a lot of like fake PayPal emails, and so you send those things out, and initially start. You don't tell anybody that it's going on, right? I mean,
No, that's key. You don't,
yeah.
the manager that you're working with has to know, but it's really key to not let anybody know that you're doing that.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it's one of those things that, as soon as they hear somebody's looking for you, they're just not going to click on anything,
Right, right.
and you're not going to get good data out of that.
Right, right. So you want to kind of make it a surprise, but at the end of the day, you're not necessarily trying to like play a gotcha, though, right? I mean, what's the ultimate goal?
No, it's more about empowering the employees and training them so that they know what they should and shouldn't click on.
Mhm.
Most of the time they've never been told what's good, what's not, what to do and what not to do,
Yeah,
and it really empowers them after the training to be more proactive.
yeah. Okay, okay. Because I mean, what are some of the risks that you let them know? Like ransomware.
Right.
Ransomware.
Well,
Can you explain what ransomware does to the
yeah,
audience?
ransomware is a pretty nasty thing by itself. Most of the time, it comes in through either a phishing attack or some kind of malicious link, and or even a RDP exploit. And
A what?
RDP, remote desktop protocol.
Oh,
Sorry, I'm
oh.
getting those terms,
Using
but
that jargon. You're too
yeah,
smart for us.
a lot of companies don't lock down their remote desktop with VPN, but that's a whole different podcast. Um, if you use an RDP for your remote work, give us a call. We'll secure you.
Right,
But,
right.
but no, ransomware is pretty nasty. So once they're in your system, they take your files and they encrypt them and hold them for ransom for money, and it can be really expensive.
So when you
Um,
say that they take your files, I mean they're actually encrypting them, like on your computers, on your servers,
yeah, in most
before you have
cases,
access to them.
yeah, in most cases, they're not taking the files out of your network. They're
Hmm.
they're physically still on your server, just encrypted,
Hmm.
and then usually they either hide them or they'll leave a little note behind, giving you details on how to get your files back or the encryption key back. It's usually depending on what kind of organization you are, banks or medical. The ransom is usually a lot higher than just a few files here and there. But it can be really expensive. A Bitcoin now, I think it's around $2,000, and that's usually the first thing they ask for is a Bitcoin or a bank 30 Bitcoins, or 100 Bitcoins, just depending on the amount of data they got encrypted.
So basically, typically it works is that you get that phony email, you accidentally put your information in there, and maybe it tricks them to download something. Or I mean, is that sometimes what it is?
Yeah, usually it's a malicious link
Right.
that you're putting your credentials in for your computer or for your Microsoft account, and they exploit it that way.
Okay. Okay. Um, and but also the funky attachments. If you just download something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Some weird
So
ads pop up or something like that.
right. Right. All right. And so they get that funky email and they put in their information or they do that download, and then it puts a program, some sort of malware, which is malware is that anything that's really bad that you don't really want on your computer. It can be
Yeah.
what the Trojans, viruses, any of that kind of stuff. Um, and so it gets on your computer, or gets on your server, and then it just starts encrypting everything. And then you end up coming to work one day and finding out that you can't access anything. And maybe there's a message that says, "Hey, I've got good news and bad news.
Right.
Everything's been encrypted, but if you send me just, I don't know, a few $1,000s worth of Bitcoins, you can have it back."
Right. I actually had a customer that got hit so bad that they had 3 different people logged in and encrypted at 3 different times. So he had three different ransom notes on the same data.
Oh, wow.
And it was pretty ridiculous. He was a medical client, or he was a doctor that had a medical office, and so you have a lot of HIPAA rules that go along with that, and you have to report it. And the expense that he went through just for the remediation side was astronomical.
Yeah. I mean,
Almost enough to shut you down.
what's an estimate on like that typical cost?
It's all over the board. It's hard to really say what the average is, because you're talking about companies that deal with billions of dollars. I think I was just reading the other day, Yahoo had almost 3 billion, customers' data breached, kind of thing, and the cost that goes along with that is astronomical. I want to say it's like, was it 80,000, something like that, for just an average.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily even just the ransom, right? It's also, what kind of time you might have to pay, the ID company to come in and take care of it for you, to actually apply the decryption.
Right. Remediation, trying to, you can do it 2 ways. You can pay them, and maybe you get your data back. You can pay a company that negotiates all that for you, and maybe even has the encryption already. Because the way these guys work, these remediation companies, they work with the same ransomware guys, and sometimes they can get a discount because they do so much volume with them. It's just a huge business. It's really weird. But so I always recommend finding a remediation company and working with them first. It costs you less in the long run.
Okay, so you're saying that if you're not a very scrupulous person, a good business venture would be to do the ransomware, but then also have a remediation company.
Right. Yeah.
So you can get them on both sides of it. That's
right.
All right.
It's like the antivirus companies write the viruses, right?
Yeah. All right. Now, just to be clear, for all of our Time for Success listeners, that's not what we're recommending. I'm just saying,
No.
if you're an unscrupulous person, watch out. No. But I mean, there's whole businesses around. I've met with people who just focus on the remediation, and they're the experts that are called in to do the negotiation. So it's interesting how there's a whole industry just on fixing ransomware issues.
Right. And it's a pretty simple solution if you're ahead of it. User training and good backup and disaster recovery. As long as you've got good backups, ransomware is not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You can get your files back pretty quickly. But a lot of companies will have just basic hard drives, doing a USB backup, and not taking them off site, and the ransomware will affect those backups as well. Yeah, if you have sensitive data, you need to have an off-site backup and an on-site backup, and it needs to be encrypted already, so that those malware can't encrypt them themselves or access them. You even need to segment it off of your network if possible.
So Debbie, when we were talking the other day, you had mentioned that you have some pretty interesting, some compelling information, I think, about phishing attacks, because I think it's easily dismissed. We think, we'll catch it, or we're not really getting that. But so share some of those numbers that you shared with me, because it's pretty crazy.
Well, 91% of cybersecurity attacks start with a phishing email, which are these emails that we're talking about.
Wait,
Uh,
91% of cybersecurity, they start
91%.
with a phishing attack.
Yep.
Wow. Wow. So it's not even necessarily all the malware and viruses that get through it for other ways. It's 91% start with a phishing email. Wow.
And 43% of these go to small businesses, and small businesses
Ooh.
are the victims of these.
Wow. 43%. Because I think the natural tendency for a small business owner is to think, well, I'm just a little guy. Well, what does it matter? I mean, I'm nobody's going to come after me. Nobody wants my data.
Right.
But I guess that's not the case. I guess it was what was that? Was it Target that had that big breach a few years back? Was that 2015, 16, something like that?
Came in
And
through their HVAC.
it went through the HVAC company. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. It was a smaller HVAC company, and so they knew that they did business with them. And so, how did that work? They hacked the HVAC company first.
Well, the HVAC company had a computer on their local network that they used a remote into, and that got breached. And since it was already on their local network, then the hacker had wide open access to the entire network.
Wow. But I mean, it can be very simple too. That if your company's breached, let's say they ask for your credentials and they can get into your network. I mean, they might be able to just send an email from one of your accounts even and making it look legitimate. And if you're a vendor, like let's say one of your largest clients is a Target, and they send an email from your email address that ends up causing them uh, to pay $100,000 or whatever that might be. I mean,
Yeah.
how would you think that your your client or your customer would react?
Yeah, it can be really difficult to tell some of those apart too. And usually that's
Yeah.
because their password and username has been compromised. We've got another client that we had the same thing happen. Like their account got hacked, and they took invoices that this other company had been sending them,
Yeah.
and rewrote the email and had the email come back from the other company or look like it came from the other company to their inbox. And it was the exact same invoice that they'd already sent them. The only thing different was the payment submission form. And it said that our payment submission process has changed. Click here. And then as soon as they click it, then they're putting in their bank information into this malware or this, the hacker's site. So,
Wow. Now, did they catch it before they paid, or did they lose out?
no. Luckily, this is a client that we had talked to quite a bit, and
Ah,
they knew that who was billing them, that they'd never really changed anything like that. It just seemed off, which is a lot of the training on this. Is if something seems a little off, double check. Just
wow.
make sure. Follow up.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you another statistic too.
Oh, go ahead.
60% of those businesses that are hacked are going to be out of business in 6 months.
Wow. Did you say 60% are going to be out of? So 60% of these small businesses that are hacked will be out of business in 6 months. Now, I think that there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, first of all, there's if you're going to take a $80,000 hit, that's going to put you out of business. Now, there's some insurance, right, that for that, and maybe we can talk about that in a second. But still, I mean, you even if you have insurance that covers some of that hit, I would imagine that if you have a client base that, especially as a small business, if you've got a client base that realizes that they've been then targeted because of what happened to you, and if they feel like there's a risk, they might end up going somewhere else, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a pretty significant threat there because you actually, by law, have to notify anybody who might have been affected by it, right?
For you're talking about HIPAA compliance and stuff. Now, whenever you start getting into that, all those breach notifications have to be
Right.
reported and documented, and you have to keep the records for 7 years. So,
Right. Well, yeah. So I mean, you've got everything's digital records now. So most healthcare providers, I would assume that mean, if you're doing any kind of business, that's healthy business, no pun intended.
Right.
You you have a decent amount of clients over the past 7 years that are at risk for getting their information stolen. But I mean, in two, like if any sort, I believe that if any of your like personal identifying information, whether it's healthcare or your credit cards or
Social
social
Security, any
security
of that stuff
number,
has to be reported as well. You're right.
yeah,
And I believe you have to offer them a service kind of like LifeLock for a certain
right,
period of time in case that they have to use that. And that's
yeah,
all it costs. And your cybersecurity policy, the insurance that you're talking about, most people don't have enough coverage. I mean,
mm-hmm,
I know with a lot of doctors and they have policies for that, but usually the base for the cybersecurity piece is like $50,000.
mm-hmm,
I can tell you the one client that I had that got breached, that was day one. That $50,000
wow,
was gone, and and that was an ongoing, probably 3-month project. After we got their data back, getting everything reported and forensics done to make sure that nothing got moved off of their site, because then that determines on the level of your remediation too, on how many letters you have to send out and who you have to notify and your timelines.
right,
It's a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, I want to say, he was probably up in the 200 grand area by the time we were done.
mm-hmm,
And it was a small office. I mean,
mm-hmm,
it was
yeah.
insane.
Now, how did that client get breached again? Was it a phishing attack?
No, that one in particular was the remote desktop, is how they came through.
It was before you. I guess it was. Did they switch to you?
They were not a managed service customer of ours at the time,
Right,
and
right.
in this particular client, we had made recommendations to make a lot of changes, and
Mm.
and they refused to make the changes. So
Yeah, yeah. So what you're saying is, if your IT guy says, "Hey, this is a significant threat," you should really probably take him seriously.
right. Yeah, that was a learning lesson for myself as well. I mean, now if I don't need the business if somebody won't take the steps to secure themselves, I might have to step away just because I don't want to be in that position either. We're pretty fair. We don't give you recommendations that are going to cost you a lot of money. And in this case, some of these changes were very low cost. It's a
Hmm.
firewall and a VPN. I mean, it's not much.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty manageable. Yeah.
Right.
So, so, so some of these things that they need to do is they need to have some sort of assessment. If you've got any sort of employees, don't just take the assumption that hey, watch out for emails or that they know what they're doing. They really should be tested. How frequently do you recommend that they're tested?
Pretty often. So with the free test, it's the initial test that you get. Ongoing testing, it's a random thing. So,
Mm,
but it probably sends out 2 or 3 a month
okay.
to continuously test them and
Yeah.
and make sure that they're learning.
Well, I think that's
So
good because I think I saw another figure that um, that you get at least one. I believe it was like one phishing attack per or phishing attack email or phishing email. I guess I should say phishing email a day, at
right,
least
yeah,
on the minimum.
yeah,
And so this one will send it out pretty continuously. And so if somebody's a client, you offer this service just to help them stay safe, and you do it
sure.
ongoingly to do that. So then let's say you got a gotcha, right? Like, all right, Susan, we saw that you clicked on this email, and shame, how I can't believe you would do this. What the heck's wrong with you? Didn't you
Right.
see that this was? Is
Well,
that the way that
you
you
know,
handle it, or is
no,
there a
not
better
at
way?
all. So whenever they get the report, it'll show them who clicked on it or who opened the email, who clicked on it, who inputted data. So you get several layers of how much at risk this employee is. And then after they get that report, everybody gets a grade, and everybody goes through the same initial training if you go on through the program, and then you do a second test, and then you can kind of see who's still at risk and who needs additional training. It's not really about, we're going to fire you if you make this offense. It's more about just educating the user of how to handle themselves or what to look for, and usually coming into companies, as soon as they learn, oh wait, they've got a report on me, they know exactly what I'm doing, the click rates go way down. Just for the effect of somebody's watching. Maybe I don't need these free M&Ms, or I don't need to click on this coupon.
Yeah. So, what are some of the things that we were looking for? So, let's say you're trying to evaluate your own emails coming in. I think one of the things that you mentioned before was any sort of weird, changes with the company that you're working with. You talked about how, the payment information suddenly changed, even though everything else looked legitimate.
Right.
What are some other things that you can look for?
Any of those red flags. So there's things like just hovering your icon over a link and making sure that the link adds up. A lot of times it would be, say, KeaneTechnologies.com isn't the same as KeaneTechnologiesInc.com, or so you have to be real careful with like where things are coming from and where those links are going to.
Right.
There's a lot of different. I've got a few examples here I can pull up.
You also to the sender and make sure it's the correct email from the sender.
Yeah.
Address.
So just to recap, because I know Debbie's audio is coming through a little bit light. So what Debbie was saying was that you look at the sender in the email, and sometimes it'll say even like a name or something like that you might recognize. Let's say somebody's their contact list and their phone or something like that was compromised, and it might say that name of the familiar person. But it might come from a different email address. I mean, I've seen that, or I've seen it where it says like it's PayPal customer service, but it's from 1437792 @yahoo.com. It's like,
right.
That's probably not.
Some of those are really obvious, and some of them they can still mask them a little bit. So you still have to go up and hover over that email address.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you have to do that with every email, but if that that little red flag in the back of your mind hits, go up. I mean, it only takes a second, and sometimes it can save you a lot of trouble.
Yeah. I know that sometimes I've gotten some weird texts or emails, and I've just called the person or sent them a message another way. Or especially if like Facebook all the time, maybe I'll text them instead, or if I get a text message, I'll send them a Facebook message or something like that, and I'm like, hey, is this legit? Imagine trying to get an unsolicited link.
Right. Yeah. And there's things like, you don't open attachments that you're not sure about. So especially if it's like an exe or a BAT batch file, or it just looks a little different, like list.exe. I mean, you kind of have to watch for that stuff. And there's also, everybody wants to unsubscribe from every email that they get to, but a lot of times hitting that unsubscribe button will send you to that malware link as well. So
that's kind of clever, right?
Yep, that's a big one to watch for, and it also tells them this is a legit email and an active user that maybe I can send him other stuff a different way.
So you want to be careful even with the unsubscribe button, even if an email comes through and like even if it's like a familiar name like a Tony Robbins or something like that, you still really want to look at it really closely.
Yep. Make sure and go up and make sure that the links are correct. Even that unsubscribe button, if you hover over it, it'll tell you where it's going to unsubscribe. And if it doesn't look legit, don't click it.
Okay. That's good. Any other tips on that you can think of?
Yeah, don't just hit your reply button. Don't respond to a spam email. That'll get you in trouble too. Same thing. Then they know you're an active user. Sometimes it can be a little tempting to respond, unsubscribe, or respond with please take me off your list. But that usually just emboldens them, and then they go after you a little bit more.
And then they try to think of more clever ways to.
Right. Again, they know it's a good email with the user that may not know everything they should be doing.
All right. How would people find like this free phishing attack offer? Because you were talking about and just so people know about it, a little bit more information. So they get this free phishing attack, which typically would be something that somebody would charge for, unless they're a managed services client of yours. But they put their employee list into the system. It sounds like it's really simple, like, and it just and it sends out. How long does it take? Like, do they do it for a week, a couple days?
No, we can, from the time that we have all your users imported, which takes us, however long it takes you to get us the email addresses, and for us to input them, an hour, and then we start the phishing test, and then within 24 hours you can have your report showing your users' click history.
Okay. So it's a great way to just kind of see if you're at risk, and then and it'll send out the emails to the employees over the course of a day and see who's at risk, and then you at least have some data that you can go to folks and say, hey, Susan, we went ahead and ran this. We weren't trying to be sketchy or anything like that. We weren't trying to pull a fast one over you. But we did want to make sure that everybody has the knowledge, and this is really supposed to be more so like educational, because everybody's is at risk. And so we had this done, and this is the information, and so and then they can go on and educate themselves, but then you'll also have some educational material for them, or how does that work?
Right. Through this program, we have a lot of educational videos. There's a whole slew of videos that we can choose through, or programs that we can choose through. And we usually get the help of the manager of the company. Every company kind of trains things a little bit different, or likes a particular video, a little bit better than the other. Some of these training programs that I've seen, like going to YouTube, they can be pretty cheesy. These programs are constantly updated. They've got really good information in them, and do a really good job of teaching the users what to and not to do. It also comes with little quizzes, so it'll break up within the training halfway through, and then you'll have to take a little quiz on what you just watched, so it makes sure that the users are actually watching it, not just playing it in the background. You can make it mandatory or not mandatory, put a timeline on it. I usually make them mandatory, just because you don't want somebody, that one user not doing it. It's very important to make the managers and the CEOs to do it as well. A lot of times they're like, I don't want anything to do with this, but there's some of the users at most risk. They're actually the ones that are being targeted for the phishing or spear phishing attacks.
Yeah.
The difference between a phishing and a spear phishing too is phishing is wide net. I'm just going to throw a net out. Spear phishing is whenever they do the research and they know who to target, that HR person or that CEO. So.
Okay. So they actually identified the specific person that they want to go after, and that's spear phishing. So that's actually a real term,
right?
That they use, going after that specific person and trying to figure out a way to trick them.
Right.
I think it's really easy for managers and leaders to get either complacent, or maybe they just get really busy with all the duties, and it's very easy for them to just click on a link. And I think it's important that people realize, remember that they're not above it, and they're even a bigger target, and sometimes even a bigger risk, just because of all the responsibility that they have. I think it's great that you offer that free service, and that the free initial assessment, and I think that being able to provide that to your managed service clients is really invaluable, and something that should not be overlooked at all, because you do that for initial assessment. I think we all know, we've gone to trainings and then we just forget it, a couple days later. And being able to do that ongoingly, I think is huge, especially since you have turnover, new people coming in and out, new stressors, and if you have updated tests, like you're talking about, like updated emails, just based on what's going on and what kind of fake stuff's going on out there, what kind of phishing emails are being used. Keeping that up to date, I think it sounds pretty important as well. So that's huge. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you and find out more information about the phishing attacks or managed services or anything like that, how do they get a hold of you folks?
Sure. Probably the easiest way is to either go out to keanetechnologies.com. It's KEANE Technologies, or shoot us over an email, Jamie M at Keane Technologies or Debbie B at keanetechnologies.com.
Okay.
Or they can fill out the contact us form on the website. Either one.
All right.
Give us a call as well. Phone number and contact. Sorry, Debbie, go ahead.
So they can also go to our Facebook page or LinkedIn page.
All right. So also your Facebook or LinkedIn page. So just look for Keane. How do you spell Keane?
KEANE.
Right. Okay. So Keane Technologies. Yeah. All right. Well, I really appreciate you folks being on here today with me, and it's great. And I can't express the importance enough of just protecting yourself any way that you can, because when we're talking about creating a freedom business, part of the processes and systems you have to have are those internal checks and balances are around security. And we're more and more a technology based world, and we rely on our emails and our text messages, because this can come in text message form as well, Facebook messages. And if we're letting our employees access any of these with our equipment, or they're using, maybe they're bringing their own technology in, but they're accessing our networks, it does put us at risk. And so we really need to be proactive about that, because most small business owners can't take $100,000 hit. They just can't. And we don't want to ruin your dreams and your chance for that freedom business, or have to delay it a few years because you're trying to recover off of a big hit like that. So don't push it off. Don't think, well, I'll deal with this at a later time. Just go ahead and start doing it now. These are things really simple things to put in now that could pay off huge in the future by just avoiding these kind of problems that there's no reason to have. So anyway, thanks again for tuning in to the Time for Success podcast. And this is Matt Barbey, your host. And if you'd like a business that gives you and your family and even your employees and their families the lives that you all dream of, please reach out. 314-441-5423. Thank you.